There's something special about a glazed ham showpiece on a celebration table. It can easily feed a crowd, and you don't need any experience to glaze it beautifully. Today I'm going to show you how to prepare a ham for glazing, how to actually glaze it, and of course how it can be presented with a wow factor. Let's get in here and see what we've got to work with. Wow, it's just under 6 kgs. This is known as a champagne ham. It's the classy ham. We've still got the hock here at the top with a few smaller bones, but the rest of the ham has been pressed, which means there are no bones. You can eat all of it, and carving is a breeze. In New Zealand, ham on the bone like this is pre-cooked and ready to eat. When you buy a slice of ham at the supermarket or a deli, it's literally a slice cut straight off here. Glazing a ham adds the glamour, and you can serve it hot or cold. Today I'll show you how to glaze it for either option. When we glaze a ham, we want to get rid of this rind so that we can get our glaze into the fat and get a nice golden colour on top. The rind is also quite tough and chewy, so most people don't like it anyway. Since a ham is almost always a showpiece, we can make a little decorative cut into the rind before we pull it off. I like cutting a chunky zigzag pattern, but you can just cut it straight if you like. Then using your fingers, stick them between the rind and the fat and slowly pull it off. You want to be careful that you don't accidentally pull out a chunk of the fat along with the rind. Without the fat, we really have nothing to glaze. You can cut this off with a knife if you prefer, but I always find just using my fingers works best. There, doesn't that look great? Do you like the decorative zigzag pattern? The next thing we need to do is score the fat layer. I usually hold my knife a little differently for this. By holding it close to the top of the blade, I can use my finger as a guide for how deep I'm scoring in. I don't want to score in too deep because then the fat can melt enough to drop right off. I cut in about 4 or 5 millimeters deep and make the cuts as far apart as my decorative zigzag lines. Instead of cutting the scoring lines at right angles, you can angle the lines to create diamond shapes. I think it looks better like this, but there are no rules. You can score it however you like. See how my finger is guiding the depth of the cut? If you look really carefully, you can see the lines we've just made. Now we can get the glaze on. I only use 2 ingredients for a basic glazed ham. Of course, there are lots of different things you could add for extra flavour, but this is the absolute basic version. Remember, just because it's easy doesn't mean it's not as tasty. Trust me. The brown sugar is for colour and caramelisation, and the cloves for a hint of flavour. These are whole cloves. See how they look like little nails with a small ball piece on top? They're not very nice to chomp into, but they infuse a lovely flavour in the ham, so I always add them. Plus I think they look quite good on the ham. Stick the cloves into the ham at every spot where the lines cross over each other. Some people like to put a whole lot of these in and make their score lines a whole lot closer. It's entirely up to you and your preference. Once the ham is glazed, you can choose to leave them in, or if you want to, you can carefully pull them out with tweezers. Sometimes people make a liquid glaze in a pot on the stove, but having worked in a European deli and having glazed thousands of hams each Christmas, plain brown sugar was our friend. Just pack on the brown sugar, not too thick, but enough to cover the fatty layer. Like I said earlier, this ham is cooked and you can eat it just like this. So if you want to eat it cold and still want it glazed, you can use a gas torch. Gently flame it, but don't get the flame too close or it'll burn the sugar. You really want to slowly melt the sugar to get that lovely caramelization. I'm just showing you a little patch, but you would do this all over and it'll be ready to eat in no time at all. Cold with a beautiful shiny glaze. There's something special about hot glazed ham though, or maybe it's just my preference. So I'm going to put this one into the oven. As it heats up, some of the sugar is going to melt and fall off into the bottom of the tray. We don't want it to burn in there, so I'm going to add some water. Add enough to cover the bottom of the tray. Now it's ready to go into the oven. It's best to glaze it slowly in a medium warm oven. Mine is on fan bake, 150 degrees Celsius or 300 degrees Fahrenheit. It'll take approximately 1.5 to 2 hours to warm through and glaze up nicely. While that's in the oven, let me tell you about my free newsletter. You can sign up using the link below or head on over to my website easypeasy.co. I love having another platform to connect with you and share more tips and ideas that I've been experimenting with in my own kitchen. Not everything makes its way to a video, and there are so many tips and tricks I love sharing with you in the weekly newsletter. Back to the ham. Here it is. It's had about an hour and it's looking pretty good already. I honestly wish I could share the smell with you. I'm going to spoon over a little of the liquid from the bottom of the pan to add a little more moisture to the top. Here, where it's a little lighter in colour, I'll add a bit more sugar. This is where you could also add some extra flavours like chopped walnuts or even some orange zest for a hint of citrus. Then pop it back into the oven. The number of times you take it out and baste it is really up to you. I use the colour as my guide. If it's nice and brown, it's done. If it's pale and pasty, it gets more sugar and goes back in for longer. Here it is, all done and ready. What do you think of this? It's all shiny and beautifully glazed and took about an hour and 45 minutes. I've got this big platter to use today and a ham stand to give our showpiece some height. I hardly ever use it, but actually they're so cheap that I decided to get one even though it's hardly used more than once or twice a year. There's no real tips for getting the ham onto the stand. You've got a hot, sticky ham and it needs to get spiked onto these spikes on the ham stand. I just pop a couple of carving forks into the sides, but not on the front presentation side, and lift it over the stand and then with a bit of force plonk it on and hope for the best. You will get a bit of meat juice running off onto the bottom plate, especially where it's been spiked. So give it a few minutes to drip and then we can wipe it away with some paper towel. I like to add a piece of foil around the hock end. The hock on a champagne ham isn't quite as pronounced as a standard ham on the bone, but in my opinion I think it still looks nice to cover this piece. Notice how I folded the foil to give it a sharp edge. I've also got a few extra little things here to pretty this up, ready for our table showpiece. I'm going to fold this piece of hessian diagonally to get a few points and then tie it over the hock with a ribbon. It might seem like a bit of fluffing around, but it really does make it look lovely. At Christmas time you can use festive ribbon or pick a colour scheme to match in with your special occasion. Then pop in some sprigs of fresh rosemary or other green herb to complete the top. This has had a bit of time to drip now, so I'm going to dab up the bits in the bottom. We definitely can't leave it there. That's a big food presentation no-no. I've got another tip though. I'm going to pop out to the garden quick and see what leafy things I can find. We can use some greenery to hide the drips that will come as you carve the ham. I usually like to use something with a big leaf, but all I could find today was these leafy bits. but you get the idea. Isn't it great how it adds colour and hides those unsightly drips? I can't wait to put this on the table and enjoy it. Wow! Glazing and serving a whole ham is definitely an easy way to feed a crowd. You don't need any experience, it's really that simple. Serve it with salads or hot vegetables. It's a showstopper and oh so delicious. Now that you've got your ham glazing down pat, this video might be helpful to iron out the rest of your party planning details. See you over there.